Warm greetings. Welcome for online video session on software engineering. Myself Jagadish, Associate Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Canara Engineering College. In the last video session, we saw about software development. In the software development, we saw the unit testing, system testing, component testing. Then in the component testing, we saw the different types of errors, parameter interfaces, shared memory interfaces, procedural interfaces, message passing interfaces, and these errors falls into three classes, that is interfaces misuse, interface misunderstanding, timing errors. Then we saw about the system testing. In the system testing, we saw about an example on that is weather data sequence chart. Then next we'll saw on test driven development. Test driven development, or we call it as a TDD, is an approach to program development in which you interleave testing and code development. You will have a number of iterative process, keep on testing the system, and if you find any error, then once again you will change debug the defect and test the system where you come across the problem. So it have a interleave testing and code development. Tests are written before code and passing the tests in the critical driver of development. You develop the code incrementally. So it's not that you develop, you come across some error in the or defect in the component. It's not that you should do the changes in a whole system. Where you found defect or problem, you should do the changes and test the component at that particular situation. There is no need of testing from the beginning because it's already tested. There is no need of test from the beginning. So you do not move on to the next increment until the code that you have been developed passes its test. So it's not that where you will find a defect in that particular component left to do the changes, then you cannot go to the next component. Once it has been completed, then only you can go to the next stages. So test-driven development was introduced as a part of agile methods such as extreme programming. However, it can also be used in plan-driven development process. So in the test-driven development, see here, you will come across identify a new functionalities in the tester. That is in the application. So, or you find there is a problem in the system. So write down that is a test cases or a test defect in that particular component and run for to test the system. Where you found the problem, at that particular stages you have to run the test. So it may fail because of the functionality is not refactored properly. So you refactor the functionalities properly and run the test. So at that time it passes the functionality, that is a test. Then at that time, if you find some other new functionality is identified, then once again write down the test case, debug the problem and run the test. So this is a iterative process incrementally till you get the proper product. And very important question even in the examination point of view, and important diagram also. So TDD, that is test driven process activities, start by identifying the increments of functionalities that is required. Start by identifying the increment of functionality that is required, and this should normally be small and implement in a few lines of code. So in the examination they can ask what are the steps in the process or as follows, or what are the fundamental test driven process, what are the fundamental steps to find out a TDD process. They can ask. So you should identify. First one is start by identifying the increments of the functionalities. So you can see that start identifying the functionalities. That's the first step that is required. This should be normally small and implemented in a few lines of code. So only small line is required to increment the functionalities that is required by the system, and write the test for the functionality and implement that this is as an automated test. So you write down the test cases for the test for the required functionalities. Then you should run the test, but to run the test, what you wrote the line, new line, that has to be run particular, but previous line code has to be automated test. So you should write the template in such a way that previous line code should be automated test, and the test the line which you wrote previously, that has to be run the test by manually, and remaining all should be automated tested. Run the test along with all other tests, previous tests that have been implemented. Initially you have not implemented the functionalities, so the new test will fail. So whatever the new code you wrote will be run the test, so you may not return the functionalities, that is test cases. At that time it gets failed. So once you write on the functionalities of the new code, then it will once again it run the test, then at that time it passes to the identify. This is a iterative process. That's incrementally keep on do the testing till the product releases. Then fourth point, implement the functionalities and rerun the test. Once all the tests run successfully, you move on to the implementing the next chunk of the functionalities. That is nothing but you check for the next functionalities of the system. So what are the process activities? One is start by identifying the increments of the functionalities that is required, write a test for these functionalities and implement this as an automated test. Run the test along with all other tests have been implemented. Implement the functionalities and rerun the test. Once all the tests are run successfully, you move on to the implementing the next chunk of the functionalities. So these are the various steps or various fundamental test driven process, test driven development. An important question in the exam point of view also. So don't forget to remember this point. Next, what are the benefits of the test driven development? So what are the benefits of the test driven development? One is code coverage, second one is regression test, third one is simplified debugging, fourth one is system documentation. So once again I say, repeat, what are the benefits of the test driven development? In that, one is code coverage, regression testing, third one is simplified debugging, fourth one is system documentation. What is actually code coverage? Every code segment that you write has at least one associated test. So all code written has at least one test. So code coverage, that is every code or segment that you write should have at least one test. So whatever the code you write, there should be at least one test. So to process the functionalities of the application. Therefore, there should be a confident that all of the code of the system are actually be executed. So even there should not be even a single point or single functionalities is left as it is without testing properly or without testing or without executing. So that care has to be taken. That is the benefit of test driven development. That because there is not at all left even a single function or a single line being left as it is without testing properly. So that is one of the benefit of the test driven development. A code is tested as it is written, so defects are discovered early in the development process. So if you find any error or there is defect in the program that has been discovered early in the development process itself. That before delivering the product to the customer, you will be identifying the errors or defects in the program itself. That is a code coverage. That is one of the benefits of the TDD. Next, regression testing. Regression testing suite is developed incrementally as a program is developed. Is it developed incrementally as a program is developed? That is why you can always run the regression testing to check the changes to the program are not introduced in new bugs. So if you do any changes to the program, so you should not identify any new bugs, that is new defects in the program. So whenever you do any changes, that changes has to be done, that is done, and as at the same time the regression, that is at the same time the TDD will you see all the previous diagram where what are the changes or the functionalities been added. It has been write the code and run the test and write the functionalities. If it is failed, write the functionalities and once again run, and that is what. So you will not find any defects or any bugs, even though if you added a new function to the program. That is the regression testing. That is, you will not find any bugs in the program. So that is what the regression testing says. Simplifying debugging. When a test fails, it should be obvious where the problem lies. The new written code needs to be checked and modified. So simplify debugging, because whenever you write a program, there will be a once again you do the testing cases, testing, and you find bugs or defects in the program. That has to be because because previously remaining codes will be automatically tested. So new written code will identify bugs. There will be simplified debugging, because the particular code has been tested once again. So not the whole system. The whole system has been tested automatically, and the newly written code has been tested separately. So identifying the bug or simplifying the bug will be easy in the new written code. And system documentation. The tests themselves are a form of documentation that describes what the code should be doing. The tests themselves as a form of documentation and describe what the code should be doing. Reading the test can make it easier to understand the code. So these are the 4 benefits of the TDD, test driven development. So even in the examination also they can ask what are the benefits of the test driven development. So in that code coverage, regression testing, simplified debugging, and system documentation. These are the 4 benefits of the test driven development. So coming to the next, regression testing. So regression testing is testing the system to check that changes have not broken previously working code. In manual testing process, regression testing is expensive. So in the manual testing, regression testing is expensive because they have to do the whatever the changes have done, they have to test manually from the starting, not the particular where the changes have been done. So manual testing will be more costlier compared to automated testing. Where in the automated testing, previous that is the modified program is being tested separately, and remaining part which was tested previously has been tested automatically. So there is the cost is less. In so manual testing process will be more. It is simple and straightforward. All tests are rerun every time a change is made to the program. So all tests are to rerun. If you do it in manual, it will be more, even in the cost also. Test must run successfully before change is committed. Test must run successfully before before the changes is committed. So next is a release testing. So in the release testing is a process of testing a particular release of the system that is intended for use outside the development team. The primary goal of the release testing is the convince the supplier of the system that is good enough for use. Convincing for who? For the customer. Release testing therefore has to show that the system delivers its specified functionalities, performances, dependability, and that it does not fail during a normal use. So release testing, the name itself says it is a releasing the product to the market, or releasing the product to the end users, maybe releasing product to the client. So it specifies the functionalities, performance, dependability, etc. And does not fail during the normal use. That has to be projected in front of the customers. And release testing is usually a black box testing process where tests are only derived from the system specification. So in the last class itself, I said about the black box testing and white box testing. So black box testing giving a input to the sub components, whereas the white box is a whole system, right? As well as correct output will be given. So release testing is usually a black box testing process where tests are only derived from the system specification. So release testing and system testing. And the release testing is a form of a system testing. So what are the importance of the important differences? A separate team that has not been involved in the system development should be responsible for release testing, not other than the developer or not other than the specification team. So some other person will be involved in releasing the releasing testing. So important differences is separate team has been involved in the system development, thus should be responsible for release testing. System testing by development team should focus on discovering the bugs or defects in the system. System testing by development team should focus on the discovering the bugs in the system. The objectives of releasing testing is to check that the system meets its requirements and is good enough for external use, that is validation testing. Objective of the release testing is to check that the system meets its requirement and is good enough for external use. So these are the two important distinguishes between the release testing and the system testing during the development process. So that has been important also. So requirement based testing. Requirement based testing involves examining each requirements and developing a tests for it. So they have taken an example for the requirement based testing as mental health care patient management system requirements. If a patient is known to be allergic to any particular medication to a particular medicine, then the prescription of that medicine shall result in warning messages being issued to the system user. So in the system, there is a mental health care management patient system. If any medicine is given to the patient which is allergic to the patient, whenever it is been given to the patient, whenever the data has been entered in the system, it has to give a warning messages to the nurse or for the doctor that the particular medicine is allergic for the allergic for the patient. That has to be taken care. This is what one example has been given for the requirement based testing. If a prescriber shows to ignore an allergic warning, they shall provide a reason why this has been ignored. So if the person is allergic to that particular medicine, even prescriber ignores that warning, then they shall provide a reason why this has been ignored. That data has to be entered in the system. So this is what the requirement based testing one example they have given before releasing a product to the customer. So requirements test, what are the requirement test has been done for the mental health care management patient system. Set up a patient record with no known allergies. Prescribe the medication for the allergies that are known to exist. Check that warning message is not issued by the system. So set up a patient record with no known allergies. So to what are the allergies is that has to be recorded, and prescribe the medication for the allergies first that are known to exist. Check that warning message is not issued by the system. And second point is set up a patient record with known allergies. Prescribe the medicine flow that patient is to allergic to. Check that warning is issued by the system. Third point is set up a patient record in which allergies to two or more drugs are recorded. Prescribe that both. These are some set of the tests has to be done before delivering the product to the customer. So you can read out these statements. Prescribe 2 drugs that patient is allergic to. Check that 2 warnings are correctly issued. And prescribe a drug that issues a warning and overrule that warning. Check that the system requires the user to provide information explaining why the warning was overruled. So these are the requirement tests has to be taken care in the releasing the product. Features test by scenarios. So features test by scenario or scenario testing, both are the same. So authentication by logging on to the system. Authentication logging on to the system. There is a test on number of features of the mental health care patient system. Download and upload of specified patient records to a laptop. Home visit scheduling. Encryption and decryption patient record on a mobile device. Record retrieval and modification. And links with drugs database that maintains the side effect information. The system for call programming. So this is what they have given in the scenario testing. Scenario testing is an approach to release a test where you typically scenarios of use and use this to do develop test cases for the system. And the scenario is a story that describes one way in which system might be used. Okay, so this is what a scenario test. And usage of scenario, that is not much important about this. And next it's a performance testing. Performance testing is a part of release testing, may involve testing the emergent properties of a system such as performance and reliability. Tests should reflect the profile of use of the system. Performance tests usually involve planning a series of tests where the load is steadily increased until the system performance becomes unacceptable. Stress testing is a form of performance testing where the system is deliberately overloaded to test its schedule of behavior. So for this performance testing are not much important, or once you can read out the statements. And next it is a user testing, and very important point and very important topic for the examination point of view also. User, see, once you develop a system, then it's been system unit testing and integrated testing, system testing, etc. Then after that it has been there is a release testing. Then next is what user testing. So in front of the user you have to test the system. So what are the steps or what are the stages have been involved in testing the product in front of the user? User or a customer testing is a stage in the testing process in which user or a customer provide a input and advice on system testing. User testing is essential even when a comprehensive system and release testing have been carried out. The reason for this is that influences from the user's working environment have a major effects on the reliability, performance, usability and robustness of the system. These cannot be replicated in a testing environment. See, before releasing the product to the customer or giving back to the customer without user testing, then the user may find a problem in his environment, that is there is not a proper performances or reliability is there, and not a proper usability. So that has not to be have a burden for the testing engineer or a software engineer. So always whenever a product is being designed, a product has to be shown in front of the user and show the there is a result in front of the system, there is a client or a end users by giving the proper input from the user side. And the types of user testing, you see the types of or three types or three different types of user testing. One is alpha testing, beta testing, and acceptance testing. Alpha testing, beta testing, and acceptance testing are the three types of user testing. Alpha testing is a users of the software work with development team to test the software at the developer site. So user will go to the developer site and will be test the product in front of the developer as well as user. That is called as a alpha testing. Beta testing is a release of the software is made available to the user to allow them to experiment and raise a problem that they discover with the system developers. So release of the software is made available to the users. So user will make use of the software in front of the developer and he gives a proper input and he finds any problems in the system. So that is called a beta testing. Acceptance testing, customer test a system to decide whether or not it is ready to accept from the system developers. So and deploy in the customer environment. Acceptance, once you do the beta testing, alpha testing, it's acceptance testing. Whether the product can be accepted by the developer and can be implemented in the user site. So that has been tested in the acceptance testing. So you have a 6 stages in the acceptance testing process. One is define acceptance criteria, and second one is a plan acceptance testing. Third one is a derive acceptance testing. Fourth one is a run acceptance testing, negotiate test results, and accept or reject system. So before accepting the product or application, the user has to do this 6 acceptance testing process in front of the developer. An important diagram also. So one is define acceptance criteria. The criteria will be defined and it will move to the next stages. That is a plan acceptance testing, and the plan acceptance testing will be moved to the derive acceptance testing and run acceptance testing, negotiated test results. At the same time, a document has also been reported, and that document will be helpful for the next stages also. And then negotiated test results, then accepted or rejected system. So the next there is stages in the acceptance testings are define acceptance criteria, plan acceptance testing, derive acceptance tests, run acceptance tests, negotiate the test results, reject or accept the system. So there is one stages in the define acceptance criteria. These stages or these steps is a ideal take place earlier in the process before the contract or there is for the system is signed. The acceptance criteria should be part of the system contract and be agreed between the customer and the developer. So before they give the product to the customer or the software engineer, there will be a agreement between the customer as well as the developer. That criteria is met or not is being seen in the acceptance criteria, different acceptance criteria. So detailed requirements are been given in the different acceptance criteria. Planned acceptance testing, and this involves deciding on the resources and time, budget. In that particular budget, whether the product has been designed or been checked in the plan acceptance testing. That is what we see in the second stages. Acceptance testing and establish a testing schedule. So acceptance testing plan should also be discussed the required coverage of the requirements and in order to which the features are tested. So that is being seen in the plan acceptance testing. And derive acceptance testing is a once acceptance criteria have been established, once acceptance criteria has been accepted or established, tests have to be designed to check whether or not the system is acceptable or not. The accepted depending upon the first stages acceptance criteria that has been established or not has been checked in the derived acceptance testing cases. Once acceptance testing test should also aim to test both functionality and non-functionality characteristics of the system. Both functional and non-functionality characteristics has been checked in the derived acceptance testing. And then the next point is a run acceptance. This is a agreed acceptance testing or executed of the system. That is take place in actual environment. in front of the customer will be checked whether it is running properly or not. And user testing environment has been set up and run the test cases. And negotiable test results is something like defining acceptance test will be passes, and there will be no problem with the system. That is checked in the negotiable test results. Test result, and rejected or accepted. Then the last stage whether it has been met the customer requirement that will be checked. If it is not, then it is rejected. If it is as per as customer, it has been accepted. So it involves meeting between the developers and the customer. So to decide whether the system has to be accepted or rejected. So once it is as per the customer requirements, it has been met, then it has been accepted in the meeting. So these were the 6 stages has been seen in the user testing. So what we have seen in the acceptance testings. Okay, and very important question also. So agile method and acceptance testing. In agile method, the user or the customer is a part of the development team and is responsible for making the decision on the acceptable of the system. So tests are defined by the user and are integrated with the other tests in that they are run on the automatically when changes are made. There is no separate acceptance testing process. Main problem here is whether or not embedded user is typical and can represent the interest of all the system stakeholders. So this is what the main problem here is whether or not embedded user is typical and can be represent the interest of all the system stakeholders. So by this we have covered the 4th module, one chapter full of software testing, and another one is there is software evaluation. We'll see it in the next class. So by meantime you view the videos, and if you find any doubts you can ask in the online video session to clear the doubts. So by this we'll wind up this session. Thank you all.